The year is 2016. The survey vessel Okeanos Explorer is working the Mariana Islands during the deep water exploration of the Marianas campaign. This is not a simple mapping run. It is a multidisciplinary expedition that combines seafloor mapping, environmental characterization, and carefully planned ROV exploration. The operational theater is the Saipan Channel, a stretch of water situated between the islands of Saipan and Tinian. This region served as a massive staging ground for heavy bomber operations during the final phases of the Pacific Theater. The ship utilizes a hull-mounted multi-beam sonar system to continuously scan the seabed. The system emits acoustic pulses down through the water column. The sound waves strike the ocean floor and bounce back to the surface receivers. The timing of these return signals generates a highly accurate topographical map of the benthic terrain. In this search area, the water is not a single exact depth. The relevant targets lie in roughly 330 to 380 meters of water, and the ROV survey will work near 370 meters, or about 1,200 feet. The seabed consists predominantly of flat sand, punctuated by occasional natural geological outcroppings. As the ship follows its planned track lines, one geometric hard return stands out from the surrounding sand. Its acoustic shadow suggests an artificial structure rather than a random rock formation, but sonar can only mark the presence of a mass. It cannot determine whether the object is wreckage, debris, or an unusual geological feature. The target now requires optical ground truthing. The depth, roughly 1,200 feet, immediately dictates the operational constraints for this visual verification. It lies far beyond practical human diver access for this mission. The water's cold, the scene is dark, and sunlight is no longer useful for visual inspection. The deep water boundary forces the expedition to rely entirely on mechanized intervention. The team prepares to deploy their specialized, remotely operated vehicle named Deep Discoverer. The operational parameters for this dive are strictly defined by a non-disturbance mandate. The expedition is organized as a purely oceanographic and archaeological characterization mission. Deep Discoverer has systems capable of contact and sampling, but on this wreck, the authorized workflow is observation only. The ROV is permitted to look, illuminate, map, and record, but it cannot disturb the site. No sediment can be cleared away from the target. No artifacts can be moved, rotated, or recovered to the surface. The entire workflow is governed by this strict, non-invasive policy. The team must extract all possible forensic data using only optical sensors and lighting arrays. To execute this complex visual survey, the operation utilizes a highly specialized telepresence network. This network is designed to overcome the limitations of having a small crew on the physical ship. The telepresence system utilizes high-bandwidth satellite uplinks to transmit live video feeds and sensor data from the offshore vessel directly to terrestrial control rooms. This method bridges the gap between the ship and a distributed network of subject matter experts. Aviation archaeologists, historians, and engineering specialists monitor the live feeds from locations thousands of miles away. These onshore experts will provide real-time navigational guidance to the offshore pilots sitting at the vehicle control consoles on the ship. The preparation sequence is methodical. The heavy tether is connected to the vehicle. This cable provides the critical power supply and the data transmission lines. The vehicle is lowered over the side of the ship and begins its long descent into the darkness. Pressure climbs steadily with depth, adding roughly 1 atmosphere for every 33 feet of seawater. The onshore team waits for the first visual contact to resolve on their screens. From this point forward, every decision will be made through the vehicle's cameras, lights, tether, and live data link. The vehicle reaches the seabed at 1,210 feet and activates its primary high-intensity lighting arrays. The darkness recedes to reveal an expansive field of scattered metal resting on the flat sand. The wreckage is highly disarticulated. This physical state is the direct result of kinetic tearing forces acting on the airframe upon water impact. When a large aircraft strikes the ocean surface, the water acts with the density of concrete. The impact energy transfers through the structure, seeking the weakest points in the aluminum framing. The primary structural joints fail under the massive deceleration loads. The forward fuselage, tail section, and wings detach from one another, transforming a contiguous machine into a scattered debris field. The heavy primary wing section separated completely from the main fuselage during this catastrophic event. The physical separation of the wing section immediately altered the descent dynamics of the wreckage. The wing is a massive lifting surface, but it became dead weight once detached from the fuselage. It retained 3 heavy radial engines and the massive main landing gear assemblies. The weight of the engines, wing structure, and landing gear would have shaped how the detached section moved through the water, but the exact underwater sequence cannot be reconstructed from the images alone. What can be stated with confidence is the final observed result. The primary wing section came to rest inverted on the sandy seabed. This final settling position creates a permanent geometry limit for the investigation. The inverted settlement traps all the upper wing surfaces directly against the sand. Critical diagnostic access panels, upper engine cowlings, and top wing insignias are permanently locked out of visual range. This physical state forces a major trade-off for the remote pilots. The inverted, shattered wreckage creates a severe entanglement hazard for the vehicle tether. Jagged edges of torn aluminum panels point upward into the water column. The retracted landing gear, torn aluminum, and separated fragments still create obstacles that could snare the data cable. The scattered debris field spans a wide area of the seabed. The offshore pilots must navigate the vehicle around these sharp edges with extreme caution. They cannot drive the vehicle directly into the center of the debris field for a closer look. A snagged tether could sever the data link or result in the complete loss of the vehicle. The pilots must calculate safe standoff distances for every maneuver. The onshore experts are forced to adapt to this geometry limit. They must direct the survey by examining the underside of the inverted structure. The high-energy impact scattered the remaining components, meaning the team must meticulously map the spread geometry to understand the scale of the wreck. The spread geometry helps define the scale of the breakup, while the exposed underside becomes the only practical reading surface. The twisted metal dictates the proximity and angle of every camera shot. Navigating the scattered debris field requires a disciplined communication loop. The onshore archaeologists can identify areas of interest and advise the shipboard team, but the pilots aboard Okeanos Explorer retain immediate authority over the thrusters. Satellite delay shapes the rhythm of interpretation, not physical control of the vehicle. The pilots move along the perimeter in short, deliberate holds, keeping enough distance for the tether to remain clear. The onshore experts face the difficult task of parsing heavily degraded shapes through the video feed. The deep water environment has covered the metal in localized biological growth and marine sediment. No silt can be brushed away, and no mechanical arm can turn a fragment over for a better view. The pilots instead work the external lighting arrays with precision, casting long shadows across flat panels to reveal subtle structural contours, rivet lines, and mechanical joints hidden under the corrosion. The investigation team utilizes a methodical grid approach to process the site. The vehicle moves from one acoustic target to the next within the debris field. The experts on shore study the live feed to identify diagnostic structural joints among the twisted metal. They evaluate the thickness of the aluminum spars, the shape of the hydraulic lines, and the design of the visible bulkheads. The telepresence network allows multiple engineers and historians to debate the identity of these fragments in real time. They cross-reference the visual data against historical aircraft blueprints stored at their terrestrial workstations. The process is slow and deliberate, dictated entirely by the tether hazard and the communication latency. The pilots hold the vehicle in a steady hover whenever the experts need time to evaluate a complex piece of debris. The strict adherence to the no-touch boundary means that visual confirmation is the only acceptable proof. The team cannot guess or assume the identity of a buried component. They must route the vehicle around the perimeter, constantly searching for a clear, unobstructed line of sight. The entire network is focused on finding cohesive structural evidence. The scattered fragments indicate a large, multi-engine aircraft, but the team needs a primary intact mass to anchor their identification. The telepresence system guides the vehicle away from the smaller debris and toward the largest acoustic return on the digital map, hoping the central mass will reveal the definitive proof of type. The vehicle approaches the largest concentrated mass in the debris field, and the lights illuminate a massive structural element resting upside down on the sand. It is the primary wing section. Despite the violent disarticulation from the fuselage, this central span remains largely intact. The onshore experts direct the pilots to trace the leading edge of the structure. 3 massive radial engines remain firmly attached to their original mounting points on this wing section. The vehicle moves further along the underside of the wing and documents the main landing gear assemblies. The gear is retracted, with the tires still intact and visible in their bays. Together, the intact central span, the retracted main gear, the estimated 141-foot wingspan, and the radial engine layout narrow the field to a 4-engine heavy bomber. The center wing construction, engine arrangement, and visible structural geometry match the known engineering signatures of the B-29 Superfortress, a type used extensively from the Mariana Islands late in the Pacific War. The combination of the massive 141-foot wingspan, the heavy radial power plants, and the distinct trunnion geometry of the main gear confirms the airframe type. The aircraft is definitively a B-29 Superfortress. The non-invasive remote characterization strategy is completely successful. The team meticulously documents the relationships between the engine mounts, the landing gear bays, and the structural ribs of the inverted wing. The telepresence network records high-definition video of the intact nacelles and the lower cowling panels. This visual evidence aligns with the broader historical record of B-29 operations originating from Saipan and Tinian, while still leaving the individual aircraft unconfirmed. The inverted orientation, while blocking the upper surfaces, provides a clear view of exposed lower aerodynamic structures and load-bearing joints. The experts note the retracted state of the landing gear, but they do not treat that feature alone as proof of the aircraft's final flight condition. The coherent wing mass proves the aircraft type beyond any technical doubt. With the primary wreck site characterized, the investigation now pivots to the outer debris field. The massive wing structure accounts for the majority of the airframe weight, but critical components remain missing. The vehicle must search the surrounding sand to locate the detached evidence and document the full scale of the structural failure. The survey operations move outward into the secondary debris field, searching for the components that tore away from the primary wing structure. The vehicle locates a distinct, isolated mass resting on the flat sand. It is the 4th radial engine. Its separation from the main wing gives the team a measurable marker for how far the breakup carried major components across the seabed. Its position and damage are consistent with severe structural failure, but the video cannot prove the exact sequence that tore it from its mounts. The vehicle documents the condition of the engine cylinders before continuing the search pattern across the seabed. The onshore team spots another acoustic target, and the pilots guide the vehicle toward a large cylindrical object. The structure rests upside down, separated entirely from the missing fuselage. It is the remote-controlled forward gun turret. The turret's position shows that it separated from the rest of the airframe before coming to rest in the sediment. Its gun barrels are embedded in the seabed, leaving only part of the assembly available for visual interpretation. As a signature component of the B-29 defensive system, the turret adds another coherent data point, but its exact position now matters more than its identity. The embedded barrels establish a hard-proof ceiling for the investigation. The specific identity of this individual bomber remains unconfirmed from the 2016 survey. Mass-produced B-29 airframes require specific serial evidence before an individual aircraft can be tied to a tail number and crew. That evidence could come from a data plate, a stamped or painted serial, or a strong archival correlation, but it must be visible and attributable. The inverted geometry of the primary wing traps all the upper surface access panels against the sand. The embedded nature of the forward gun turret conceals its lower structural mounts and internal inspection plates beneath the sediment barrier. The strict no-touch mandate prohibits the vehicle from clearing the sand or attempting to rotate the massive turret assembly. Without that physical access, the tail number cannot be read, and the identities of the flight crew cannot be definitively linked to this specific wreckage. The visual survey has exhausted the visible evidence from the coherent mass and detached components, but the sediment barrier remains closed. The proof ceiling is absolute. The remote sensors have mapped the debris boundaries, verified the aircraft type, and documented the violence of the crash, but they cannot identify the individual airframe. The final phase of the deep water survey focuses on evaluating the long-term environmental condition of the B-29 wreckage. The deep saltwater environment is a complex preservation setting, not a simple timer of destruction. The team can see corrosion, sediment cover, biological growth, and the effects of long-term site formation. But the survey does not measure every chemical factor at the wreck. Aluminum aircraft structures can develop protective oxide layers, while dissolved oxygen, pH, salinity, and contact with other metals all influence the pace and pattern of decay. The final documentation pass therefore records condition, exposure, and deterioration indicators rather than declaring a single unstoppable mechanism. The primary objective of this final documentation pass is to establish a permanent baseline dataset for the site in the year 2016. The high-definition video feeds, combined with post-dive spatial mapping and modeling, record a valuable configuration of the visible site. Because the survey was not designed as a complete archaeological excavation, this dataset serves as an initial cultural heritage baseline rather than an exact inventory of every buried or obscured component. The site is treated as a protected military aircraft site. Unauthorized disturbance, removal, or recovery is prohibited, and any intrusive work would require proper legal authority, a justified research or management purpose, and a permitting process. The depth of about 1,200 feet also helps isolate the site from casual human interference. The archaeological team now has the aircraft type, the disarticulation pattern, and the mapped positions of the primary wing and detached gun turret. The serial identity remains unknown, but the visible configuration is preserved in the digital record. This baseline documentation supports comparison with future surveys, especially if later teams return with new imaging or mapping systems to evaluate collapse, burial, or new site boundaries. With that record secured, the vehicle completes a final methodical pass over the debris field. including the inverted wing and the detached components that can be safely viewed. After the horizontal stabilizer is located and weather and current conditions worsen, the pilots on the surface ship initiate the recovery sequence. The thrusters adjust and the vehicle slowly lifts away from the sandy bottom. The tether is reeled in, pulling the cameras up through the water column. The high-intensity lighting arrays pull away, leaving the scattered B-29 Superfortress behind as darkness reclaims the site.